right, welcome to another edition of I'm No Expert. Today I'm going to be talking about the Los Angeles Clippers. The Lost Angeles Clippers. The Clippers curse seems to be alive and, well, not so well if you're a Clipper or a Clippers fan. And a couple of my close friends, a few of my friends are Clippers fans, and it sucks for them. And we, as Lakers fans, and I'm sure most Clippers fans, we're looking forward to a showdown in the Western Conference Finals between the Los Angeles Lakers, the King, LeBron James, and the Brow, AD, versus Kawhi, the Claw, the reigning MVP, two-time Finals MVP, reigning Finals MVP from his stint last season with the Toronto Raptors when he led them to the title, their first and only title. He also had a Finals MVP when he was with San Antonio, and his counterpart, Paul George. Now, the Clippers had a 3-1 series lead, a stranglehold over the upstart Denver Nuggets, led by the Joker Jokic and his cast, his band, his crew of characters. Jamal Murray, who had an amazing series against the Utah Jazz, where he had multiple 50-point games. So the Clippers blew it. The Clippers had the 3-1 series lead, the stranglehold. They had their foot on the neck. They had their hand inside of the chest, gripping the heart of the Denver Nuggets, and they blew it in Game 7. And they did not lose a close game. They got blown out. They, as a franchise, the Clippers as a franchise, have not made it past the second round ever. The last time they got this close was back in 2015 when they had Lob City in full effect. Lob City was the team in L.A. because the Lakers, quite frankly, just sucked at that point. And Lob City, Blake Griffin, DeAndre Jordan, led by CP3 Chris Paul, coached by Doc Rivers, was the team in LA. They were Lob City, they were exciting, they were young, they were fresh. And back in 2015, the last time the Los Angeles Clippers were in the second round of the Western Conference playoffs, they also had a 3-1 series lead over the Houston Rockets. And somehow, some way, they managed to blow that and ended up losing. Fast forward 5 years to 2020, you got a whole new team. They got new uniforms that looked like something out of, their font was very LA based. The Los Angeles was like old English style. They had a whole new ad campaign. They had a new owner since then. If you know the whole history with Donald Sterling and his racist ways and what he got recorded saying all this racist stuff, which forced him to sell the team to the now owner Steve Ballmer. Billionaire tycoon Steve Ballmer took over as the owner and basically said, I'm going to make this team a winner. I'm going to put money into it. I'm going to get good players. I'm going to push this team forward into contendership and eventually to the title. So what he did is he's been making moves ever since. He's got plans to build a new stadium out in Inglewood where the Forum is at, which is the house that Magic and Kareem and the Showtime Lakers built. I say he should just go up to Seattle where he's from because they desperately miss the Supersonics, which moved to Oklahoma with Ken the Thunder. But I'm getting off track here. They have this billionaire putting his money behind them, and they acquired Kawhi the Claw Leonard in his prime, two-time Finals MVP, current reigning Finals MVP, just fresh off of winning a championship last season with the Toronto Raptors. They acquired him. He chose to go to the Clippers when many thought he might come to the Lakers. And then he says, I need a running mate. I need a co-superstar to help me reach the mountaintop. So you bring in Paul George, who was a much sought-after free agent. He didn't do too well in Oklahoma City with Russell Westbrook, but a lot of people could have blamed Russell Westbrook for that failed experiment. But I digress. You had the Clippers, who were projected by many an expert. They were picked and projected and put up prematurely on a pedestal to be the NBA champions this season. They were picked above LeBron James, probably because he's 35 years old and in his 17th season. But look at us now. The Clippers curse is real. It's very, very real. They blew a 3-1 series lead to the Denver Nuggets, who barely made it here off of a 7-game win against the Utah Jazz. And it wasn't good at all. Game 5, their first closeout game, they blew a 12-point second half lead. They had a 12-point lead. They blew that in the second half. Okay? And then in Game 6, another closeout game, they blew a 16-point lead. Okay? So they blew a 12-point lead in Game 5, first closeout game. Then they blew a 16-point lead in Game 6, the second closeout game, which brought them to Game 7, and the nerves were on them. They started off well. Well, they even had a 9-point lead at one point in the first half, and their 7-point lead in the third quarter. But once that lead got taken away and they fell behind, it's like their hearts just withered within their chest. They had no answer. Once they got behind, they could not catch up, and the slaughtering and the removal and the sacrificial removal of their collective hearts was on. They had no answer. They just withered under the pressure of a Game 7. It's amazing. Where does Coach Doc Rivers go from here? This is two separate teams that were projected to be at least in the Western Conference Finals, and by some projected to be the overall champions. Doc Rivers is a good coach. He coached the Boston Celtics to a title in 2008 against our beloved Lakers, as we know, and to another finals, which he almost won, which the Lakers narrowly escaped with the title, again in 2010. Doc Rivers was a heck of a player, and he's been a hell of a coach, and just an overall example of what you want a basketball persona to be. No one can take any of that away from him, but where does he go now? Having the tools, the weapons that he had at his disposal. This team this year, this Clippers team, I mean, they beat the Lakers the first two meetings. They ended up losing to the Lakers the second two meetings. You can argue that the fourth game between them didn't count because it was in the bubble after a long layoff, months and months of a layoff. But they were supposed to be tough. They were supposed to be gritty. They had Montrezl Harrell, the sixth man of the year. They had Lou Williams, former sixth man of the year. They had Patrick Beverley, who was just known to be just a stout defender coming over from the Rockets. He brought his reputation over with him. And then you've got Paul George, who's supposed to be a bona fide superstar in his own right. And then you got Kawhi Leonard, who's supposed to be the best player in the league. You have a lot of experts picking him over LeBron James, over Kevin Durant, assuming that he would be healthy. They just had him as the best player in the league. And they blew a 3-1 series lead, blowing multiple double-digit leads in closeout games, and blowing a large single-digit lead in Game 7. And where does the franchise go? What pieces do they pick up? Who do they move? Does Doc Rivers stay on as coach? Does Steve Ballmer want to continue to give him another chance? What is their psyche going to be like, knowing that they did this? And is the Clippers curse truly and really a thing? Should they move out of L.A.? I mean, they're not. They're going to build a whole new stadium here. It just seems like they can't get out of their own way as a franchise, even with a whole new owner, a whole new marketing strategy, which was street lights, not spotlights. If you live out here in L.A., in the L.A. area, you drive up and down the freeways and in the city, and you see the whole ad campaign that they've been running all year, which is meant to be a dig, meant to be a jab at the Lakers franchise, saying that they're gritty and that they're street and that the Lakers are this Hollywood fluff. That's the whole street lights, not spotlights ad campaign. And they've had that playing style all season long with Montrezl Harrell and Patrick Beverley being these tough hard-nosed defenders. That was supposed to be their trademark style. Now, I myself personally said you can't have a trademark style if you've only had a team that's been together for one COVID-19 shortened season. You haven't built the trademark. You don't deserve that yet. And they proved it by losing Game 7. Now, us L.A. fans, we don't get the L.A. Clippers versus L.A. Lakers showdown that we so wanted, because we as Laker fans wanted to smash on them to prove, but we don't get that. Now we have to play the Nuggets, which for me is a little bit kind of dangerous. They're firing on all cylinders, and they have the heart knowing that they came from 2 straight 7-game series and pulled it out. Now the Lakers, I feel like we're just super talented, and we've got LeBron James, and we've got our whole team is on a mission. Mamba on 3, 1, 2, 3. Mamba, and the King is doing what very few players in NBA history has done this season. He's a man on a mission. Well, we get to face the Nuggets now in a not so highly anticipated showdown starting on Friday, Game 1 of the Western Conference Finals, because the Clippers choked. And in Game 7, Kawhi Leonard, the so-called, anointed by many experts, best player in the league, had 14 points. 14 points on 6 of 22 shooting in a Game 7 with everything on the line. Legacy, carrying the franchise to the Western Conference Finals for the first time in franchise history. He had 14 points on 6 of 22 shooting. Paul George, his running mate, another so-called bona fide superstar, second-tier superstar, he had 10 points on 4 of 16 shooting. 14 points from the so-called best player in the league and 10 points from his superstar running mate. That's not going to get it done in a Game 7 where you're supposed to be the team that's projected to win it all. You're supposed to be the team that's supposed to get your franchise past the second round for the first time in your not-so-illustrious history. There's a thing in L.A. where, if you go to the Staples Center and you go and it's a Clippers home game, they cover up all the Lakers championship banners. They cover all our banners with selfies of the players. So if you go on the internet and you talk amongst fans and they're arguing, Laker fans, we say, we hang banners. Y'all hang selfies. And it looks like they're going to have to wait their turn, wait another season. Better luck next time, because they blew another 3-1 series lead. Second 3-1 series lead they've blown in 5 years. 2 different squads, Lob City and this We So Gritty, not going to get it done. Not looking so pretty. Now, all respect to them. They made it this far, second round. But sorry, you couldn't get it done. I'm no expert, but I just think that Steve Ballmer should rethink building a whole new stadium in Inglewood, the home of the fabulous Forum, the Great Western Forum, the house that the Showtime Lakers built, the home of the Lakers where Kobe and Shaq played prior to the Staples Center being opened in 2000. And he should just move up to Seattle, where he's from, where he made his fortune, and give those people a team to cheer for, since they miss the Supersonics and have missed the Supersonics since when they moved to Oklahoma City in 2008 or 2007. I say, Mr. Ballmer, you take the L.A. Clippers, formerly of San Diego, and move them up to Seattle, and maybe your luck will change. Who knows? I'm no expert. I just call it how I see it, and that's my opinion. For now, it's Rob V signing off. You wanna.